Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you for just being online tonight. This, of course, is the Shake Up with Dr. Kit. We're always here every Monday, evening at 6, unless something beyond my control happens or I'm traveling. All right, so I want you to know that. But I'm always going to be here as best as I can. So here I am again, this here, and I got, every now and then I just get the unction to do something solo, because I might have something that I just want to take the time to just kind of just talk you all through it. And of course, I want you to throw your stuff in the chat. I want you to be very, very active tonight. I want you to just blister the chat with your comments and so on and so forth. And of course, if I'd love to have some of you even just jump on the live chat and just chat with me for a while and ask me a question in person. But if you don't want to do that, well, just send your questions in and I will take care of that. So tonight I'm going solo, and I'm talking about um mental, and here recently there's just been a lot of focus on mental health. There's a lot of focus on that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but I think a lot of it just kind of come from pretty much the same place, the same space, and we tend to share the same type of information. But I think there's a lot more to share, and I don't have it all together. So I want you to know that. But I'm going from a different vantage point, a different way of looking at it tonight. Okay. So I'm going to be looking at um, mental health in the Black community reframed. Mental health in the Black community reframed. And the reason I use that for my topic, because a lot of time we tend to localize mental health to a person, but we don't necessarily take a look at this from a systemic point of view. And so that's what I want to do tonight, and also reframe some things. And of course, you know that by now, you know that when I talk about reframing, I'm not going to change the structure of anything. We're just going to give it a different, put the narrative, the information, the understanding in a different mind frame, so that you can look at it and understand it and hear it. And maybe you hear it that way for the first time. You might like it. Sometimes you might say, "Nah, that's crazy. That man ain't got a clue what he's saying." But before you do that, make sure you think about it and think it through, and then process it in your own way. Okay, so I'm looking at mental health in the Black community reframed. So I'm here by myself. It said, according to research, Black men are less likely to go to therapy than men of other races. Now, um, I'm I don't know how they would accurately know that unless they would go through the Black population and pick a sample. I don't know how they would randomly do that. I have never been a part of a study like that, but I don't know what demographics they would use to be able to come up with the idea that Black people, especially Black men, are less likely to go to therapy than men of other races. They may be correct. I don't know that though for for sure. But like I said, be that as it may, I'm sure these are some standardized research questions, and the procedure was good, so they were able to generalize it. But of course, we do know that generalizability is not always accurate. So we're going to do that. Okay. So the first thing is, how do they know that? Because if they don't know that for sure, then one of the things that they are more likely to do is to is to make supposedly accurate or correct statements, you know, about this thing that we call mental health and that black men are less likely to go. Is it? Did they find this out by reading somebody else's research? Because 3 or 4 or 10 people who do their research, they all come to the same conclusion. How did they do that? Because if they come to that without having firsthand research, then they are more than likely to stereotype us as black men and saying that, listen, those guys they not like to go to therapy. Now they may have it right, and then some of the stuff I'm going to say might surprise you. So historically, we we lack the openness from our African ancestry. We may lack what we have inherited some of this from our African ancestry, and there tend to be a kind of a secrecy in the way we as black folks share parts of ourselves. And one of the things that I found out is that in an old African society culture, most people who exhibit any obvious degree of cognitive or emotional or behavioral deviation from the normal behavior was viewed negatively and often labeled as possessed by the devil, having evil spirits or bewitchment. Now we do know that is not so far off the track, because according to my research, some of that is true. That if family members or members within the tribe or were behaving in such a way that it was visibly different from what they considered to be the norm, they might say, and we have said that, that something is wrong with these people and that they are being bewitched. Obia is one of the words that they use to say that somebody put the stuff on them, when really it may not have anything to do with that. It may have everything to do with that this person or persons, may be having or going through, some kind of biological, psychological, sociological, or even spiritual disturbance. And the way they act it out may seem to some people like they are being controlled by the devil. And so we got to be careful, because some of us, we know that in some cultures, we are deep into spiritualism and obedience and stuff like that. We really are. And so one of the things that they do often result in when these happen in some of these ancient tribal community, that it would often result in teasing, mocking, and banishment. Teasing them, mocking them. I don't know if you remember what was the name of that movie now? Roots. Yeah, there we go. Roots. There was a time when old Chicken George, and all those guys were just kind of running around, acting like they were something was wrong with them, and that was a kind of some part of the bewitching component of some of the things that our ancestors believed in. And they believed in that for their own good reason. But as we have, we're forced out of our community in Africa, and some of us have traveled around the world. And when we come down to today, we don't see that necessarily as a bewitchment, but by any shape, shape of our imagination. We see that now as mental health. But this banishment part, I think it has the capacity to make people think that something is wrong with them as a person. As a person, something is wrong with them. And even though they may be going through that from a cultural point of view, I'm just wondering, because I know it certainly would make sense for us today, if at some point they would not be start feeling like I'll get to that question. I'll just keep it up there. Like like they would go through what we call separation anxiety. You know, they are abandonment, all of those things. But maybe if like in ancient Africa, if they saw that and they, you know, as a part of their norm, they they would. I'm not sure how they would kind of begin to tweak their mind and the way they see things, so that they would not feel that distress of separation for a while. Okay, so let me pause that. Richard, I have heard that mental health struggles are signs of weakness, not being able to process trials appropriately, or not having enough faith. Oh, thank you for that, 6'5". Keep it up there, okay? Because I want to remember this and just kind of walk my way through this. And thank you. And again, others, as I'm talking, I'm here solo tonight, so I want you to be active in being on the program with me tonight. And I'm even going to be bold enough to say, if one or two or three, some of you would like to just come on online, you know, and share your thoughts with me on the program, you know, just, you know, we'll get you through that. Okay, but so keep that up there. Okay, I've heard that mental health struggles are signs of weakness. Well, you know, 6'5", I you know, I have high blood pressure, right? Came down through my family. My, you know, both my parents, my entire sibship, you know, we all got this thing. But none of us, we didn't raise our hands for it. We didn't raise two hands for it. We didn't send a letter to God, you know, make me like this. So is it a sign of weakness, or are there some, you know, some biological, biopsychosocial components that we have not looked at? Because I think it's easy for us, and you're right, because we're going to get to this, so I might repeat myself, but we're going to get to this, to where we begin to blame the person's behavior and use the person's behavior to create a framework of the person. In other words, what they do to make a statement about who they are. And we don't have that capacity to do that. So if we see that as a sign of weakness, then the question is, how did we get to where it is a sign of weakness? Is it always a sign of weakness? What does mental health mean? How do we have a really good scientific fix on what mental health is? Do we know what, you know, degrees of depression and how that might how people might work their way through their anxiety, you know, bipolar? How do we know all of this to say, well, mental health struggles? How do we define mental health and put it in a bottle and say, if it fits into this bottle, by definition, it is mental health? We don't know that. We really don't know. And then there is, and you know, I'm kind of jumping all over because of the question. You know, there's the cultural thing today. Modern cultures will have different types of behavior. So is it a sign of weakness? If we say that, then we're saying that there is something wrong with the person who is exhibiting this mental health struggle. And I like that word, 6'5", because it is indeed a struggle. And we don't know what the person is struggling with. We may look at them and say, because they're behaving that way, they might be, you know, they're weak. But the struggle and the degree of struggle that they're going through, it has a direct correlation to what it's stopping them from doing. Okay, it's an annoyance to them. It's stopping them from doing certain things that they want to do. And so they struggle to get through life. They struggle not to cry. They struggle not to feel depressed. They struggle not to feel anxious. They struggle, and you know, and so it's hard. And so when they're going through that, because a lot of times people don't want to talk about those things. They don't want to share those things. Okay, so we see that then as a sign of weakness, not being able to process, you know, trials appropriately. And the thing about processing our trials is that There ain't nobody on the planet who can see your trials or mine. Trials are what is it now? I want to say that it is an experience of my experience. That's what a trial is, because you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't eat it, you can't smell it, you can't wear it, you can't. It has no structure. There is no structure to it. It is an internal component of the way I'm experiencing myself, going through something that has happened to me, and how am I reacting to it, and the way I react to to a particular stimulus one day may not be the same way I react to it another day. In other words, if it was raining, it's been raining here all day. Yeah, it depends on what's going on inside of me. I may take a different view and experience myself here in one way today because it's raining. Well, part of it is, it was raining out. It's kind of cold and damp, so I don't like cold, damp rain. But if it was raining in the middle of July, and it was hot and the rain was coming down, cooling me down, I tell you, I'm going to have a different kind of reaction. So my struggles will not be the same. Okay. And so we need to understand that all of this stuff, when we're talking about mental health, we can kind of define it in a way because we've done some kind of standardized testing and stuff like that. But there is no standardized test on the planet. It just does not exist. I don't care what anybody says. It does not exist where you can say, I can tell by a standardized test, okay, what you are experiencing and how you are experiencing it. I will see how you acted out. That's as close as they can come. I will see how you acted out, but no one can tell you about, exactly what's going on. And I'm going to do, if I hit myself like that, no trick questions. It's painful. The question here is this, and here's the experiential question. How much pain am I feeling? Nobody knows that, So we went to the, sometime, we'll go to the hospital to visit just friends or church members and so forth. We're in there sometimes, and we say, okay, we're going to go on outside and let the nurse do her thing. They say, oh, no, you can stay here. I'll say, we can stay on. The questions the nurse said, well, good morning, Mr. Smith. How are you doing this afternoon? I'm doing pretty good. Well, I'm your nurse for today, and so on and so forth. And, they don't spend a whole lot of time with this sometimes, but they'll come in and say, well, I see that yesterday your pain threshold was 7 out of 10. Oh, that's not bad at all. The other day you were way up at 9 or 10. Yeah. Well, what's your pain threshold like today? And Mr. Smith is saying, well, it still hurts. And he's going down to meandering around all of these things, And he said, well, is it a little bit less? Yes, it feels like it's a little bit less, but I'm not sure. Well, yesterday it was 7. Is it like a 6 today, or I don't know? And the problem with that is this: they are trying to quantify something that is qualitative. Your pain is qualitative. Your mental health is qualitative. Nobody can put a quantification on it to say it is 8 or 9 or 10 out of 100. They just can't do that. And so when so this is a part of them not understanding the struggles that we have going through working it out and working it through. I hope that 6'5", that give you some kind of a clarity. I saw something. I have always hated the pain number system. Yes, who knows what the system level pain is exactly? Nobody knows, but they do that 6'5" to make it easier for them on their charting, and to make it easier for them to say, well, Mr. Smith is getting better. Well, maybe Mr. Smith is not getting better, but Mr. Smith is just tired of saying, every time I tell them that my pain threshold is up, they just give me more meds. Nobody sit and talk to me as Mr. Smith, because nurses don't have the time to do that. But that, you're absolutely right, 6'5". Nobody knows. It makes no sense. But for them, it's just something that kind of get them through their day. And I'm not bashing nurses or the nursing system, I'm just saying that, from a scientific point of view, it's just impossible for them to know. All right. And so thank you for both of those questions. And so we discovered here that in old Africa, like way back, pre-slavery and just right after slavery and several, just, maybe a couple of hundred years after that, we would have people who, and maybe even to now in, different parts of Africa, people would have these kinds of infirmities, if I can call it that, and they're acting it out in different ways. But the truth is, every culture has its own inherent way of behaving in order to do what? Alert other people about what's going on. And the thing about it is this, that in every culture, there are those who just love to be the actor. Yeah, they just love to act. So they'll do. And one of the reasons when they act out, they get some really good attention. And some of them get so much attention, so much notoriety that they become let me say, they become like the village clown. Okay, the village clown, and sometimes every village, may need a clown to do what? Distract people who are in deep pain when they're looking at the clown, and the clown comes and does all this kind of stuff. And but then on the other hand, they're thinking this guy is crazy. But where the crazy guy at? Let's bring him in so that I don't have to focus on me. So what they do sometimes though is that so that their village or their homes or their society does not look like it's in disarray. They will banish them. Yeah, that's right, Ronnie, baby girl. Exactly. Yes. Thank you for that. They will banish them. And what they're really doing when they banish them is like saying, I'm going to get rid of the blight on my social system. Because when other people see anybody acting this way in our social system, we need to get rid of them. Now, in modern day, today, April 21, 2025, there are ways in which we get rid of our people who are going through their own mental health distress. And somehow our entire social system is complicit with all of these things because we are not, and we're talking about, mental health in the Black community reframe. I'm not talking about a Black person. I'm talking about the mental health in the community. Whatever happens to any part of a jigsaw puzzle happens to the entire puzzle. You understand what I'm saying here? You can't isolate one part of the jigsaw puzzle and not leave a hole, a deficit in the community of jigsaw puzzle. I'll get back in a second. Yes, Village Clown, reality TV star. No. Okay, 6'5". Yeah, the Village Clown, So, yeah, thank you for that. So sometimes when they will get rid of these people, and it gives them a sense of normalcy, but it is not their norm, because once they get rid of this person, they have created a norm because the presence of this person here is a part of their norm. So I was saying, you cannot banish a part of a jigsaw puzzle without harming or creating a hole, a disparity in the rest of the puzzle. Because this person that you have taken, I'm talking about in the Black community, mental health in the Black community. Because when you remove one piece, that one piece that you removed, was touching at least 2 or 3 other pieces. And those 2 or 3 other pieces, is dependent on that one piece, which you removed and put in jail, or, because we think they're crazy. When we remove them, what happens, the 2 or 3 people that this person that we've locked up and put in jail, those two people does not have this person to feed off of for their well-being. Not so they can act crazy, but for their well-being. And their well-being now is being compromised so that the people that they touch now in totality, okay, cannot feel great because everybody, every piece on the jigsaw puzzle is dependent on every piece to be in place so that the entire puzzle can feel good. You see, and this one I titled it Mental Health in the Black Community, not among Black men, not among women, not among anybody, because the mental health of one person, the quality of the mental health of one person is and should be the concern of the entire community. Okay, the entire community. So let's go back to the puzzle. If it's missing, the mental health of this piece that we take out and discard because it's not making the rest of us look right. Okay, it impacts the rest of the community. Okay, it's an old African banishment. So young children who are banished will likely experience mutual separation anxiety from their family members. So sometimes when the village fathers or we, the community, decide that old so-and-so is acting crazy, so we need to get rid of him, instead of pouring into him, what we're doing when we send him away, he's hurt or she's hurt. The people that they're leaving behind, they're hurt because they need to be connected and they're not. That's the kind of a jigsaw puzzle stuff I'm talking about. You take that person out of your community and put them in another community, in prison, in jail. What we're really doing is isolating them, and we are not thinking that their well-being is important to us, and we need them here so that we can feed off of them and they can feed off of us so we can feed others. They're not thinking. They're not thinking like that. So in our current community, then, we have this stereotyping where we just, do all kinds of things. And labeling is one of those things. Labeling. And the reason we label things, labeling has nothing to do with the thing that we label or the person that we label. It has nothing to do with it. Nothing. So here's the reason I'm saying that. When you label something or somebody, well, my wife says to me, "Hey, listen, man, the grandkids are here. They spend the weekend with us." And my wife said, "I want to fix them a really nice breakfast because we don't get them too often." I said, "Okay." This one, they were smaller. It's okay. So she goes into the pantry and said, "Hey, oh, you know what? They love baked beans. But we don't have any." She said, "Can you go to the store and pick up a can of baked beans?" And I said, "Sure, baby. I'll go to the store. Anything for the grandchildren, anything for the grandchildren." So I go to the store. And I want to go and come back real quick so we can get this thing done so the kids can have a good time. So I go into the store. I'm talking about labeling. How we label people who has or exhibiting what we decide is mental health. And I'm not saying that it is not mental health, because some are very obvious. There is a disparity in the way that they should think and behave and act out in society, what we call the norm. There is a norm. And when we establish a norm, any deviation means something is wrong with that person. So I go to the store. And I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to go through this large grocery store trying to find the aisle where the beans are. So I see somebody says, I say, "Sir, can you take me to the aisle where the beans are?" He said, "Sure, down aisle 15. I said, "Thank you." He said, "As a matter of fact, I ain't doing nothing much right now. Let me walk down there with you. Let me walk with you." So he walks me down there. And then he goes, he said, "All the beans are down here. All the beans are down here." And he said, "All the beans, cans and cans and cans and cans of different kind of beans. And just there, beans and peas, and there's a whole bunch of stuff down there." So I said, "Thank you, sir." So just imagine that. So I pull out, I'm talking about labeling. So I pull out a can opener out of my pocket. And I start opening a can. He said, "So what you doing?" I said, "Well, the label says this is baked beans, but I don't know if I trust the label, so I need to cut the can and go inside the can and see if the real, if there are baked beans in there." He said, "Sir, I've been working here for 15 years and nobody's ever cut a can and said, brought it back and say, hey man, I bought some beans and there are peas in there or some string beans." I said, they say it doesn't work. So I said, well, let me, so I opened it up. He said, "Sir, I told you, are you satisfied with that?" He said, "Yeah, you're gonna have to pay for that." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, I know." So I grabbed another can. He said, "Sir, it's going to be the same thing." I said, "Yes, it's only because you believe the label, but I'm trying to figure out who the person is on the inside that they labeled, because I don't know that the label isn't always accurate." So I cut into, and do you know, I cut about 4 cans open, and do you know, every can based on the label got beans in there. So what's that telling me? That's telling me that the reason they label people is so that I could go down some aisle and find a can of beans and get them as quickly as possible. And I'm not concerned about the beans on the inside until I get home and start eating these beans. And even then, the only thing I'm concerned about is the fact that I'm getting some beans. So I'm not saying that the label is wrong. What I'm saying is it makes it easier for us to pigeonhole people and put them somewhere so that we can find them. We pigeonhole them when we put people, they may have mental health issues. We all have moments of mental health distractions. We all have that, some more frequently than others, some more enduring than others. But when it comes down to it, I don't want to spend time looking at labeling people, putting them somewhere just so I can find them at my will, so that I don't have to do the work. So I don't have to know where to go and find, cousin so-and-so who broke the law because they're over at some prison house or some jailhouse. I'm not saying that they should not be. Please don't get me wrong. But at least I know where they are because they are labeled as prisoners. And if back in the day on the chain gang, they're wearing their black and whites, and now they have their orange jumpsuits, and they have all of that, all of those labels, so we know. And if somebody just happens to escape from a road gang and they're out there in their orange suit, everybody know we got an escaped prisoner on our hands. And so we discover then that we do that, labeling people, pigeonholing people, because when we discover or we believe that they are going down through this, we got to be able to find them. And then we give them all kind of characterization. Again, let me say, I'm not saying that there is no truth to the findings. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying here is the outcome of this is that I'm reframing things, not changing the structure, just to say that we just need to be careful that we don't label people, and we are more interested in labeling people as opposed to getting to know who the person is. And that's the key piece. Knowing people despite the label that we put on them or society might put on them. And so there's some stigma. So mental health comes with some degree of stigma. And I was talking with this family, and this child, was somewhere on the autism spectrum. I'm not sure where on the spectrum, but it was enough for the parents to come in and want to talk about it. It wasn't profound by any means, by any stretch of imagination. They were educable. They could talk. They could function. The child could function. Okay, but the mother was saying, I feel, And sometimes I feel like it was my fault. And I start crying. And sometimes I even feel some personal shame that I caused this to my child. And my wife would, my husband would try to console me, but I just can't get past the shame, because he is not where he needs to be when I compare him with his cohorts, with the other kids of his age. He's not doing what he needs to be doing, mechanically up here, cognitively up here, emotionally and affectively. He's not doing all of those things. Why? Because he has this dilemma that's going on in his life, where for him it's normal because that's all he has ever known. But and he wasn't that old that he could make this a great comparison. But for us, the parents, we have this shame, and sometimes we want to take the blame for something that may have been a biological glitch that has skipped, a couple of generations that we don't know about. We don't know that, and so the shame, and some people disgrace and humiliation, and some people even begin to tease these young people who are going through a mental health trying times, and they had nothing to do with it. And instead of us trying to understand them, okay, again, let me say, if it's not profound and if it's not creating a problem, nevertheless, some people, depending on how the testing would come down, they might want to institutionalize them. Well, let's take this piece of puzzle out of the family jigsaw puzzle picture, and we put them over there, and they don't have us to give them the kind of validation and support that they need. But inside of this place where they might go, if they are in long-term or institutionalized, they're in there with a lot of strangers. Okay. And they may all be at pretty much the same level of function. How do you grow past that when what you're seeing is what is determined to be the normalcy? How do we know that? So it's hard. And so family shame. Some people may feel guilty. Without saying too much, the lifestyle of this person was mother was kind of and the father for that matter was kind of questionable a little bit. So this is why they were saying, hey, was it because of me? And it can be humiliating, and why was it humiliating? Because they're saying, well, I can't take him places where all the other kids that are normal can go, because he can't play with them and play the games that like they play. We're talking about mental health in the Black community, not in individuals. We need to own this thing. If it's in any part of our social system, we need to own it as ours, because if we don't own it as ours, we will not get to the place where we want to help each other to either manage it or to overcome it. Okay, we've got to be able to do that. Okay. And some of the stigmas that come, lack of acceptance. If whatever the mental health issue is, whoever the symptom bearer, there is the symptom bearer, the one who is afflicted with this affliction. They are wearing that 24 hours a day. You and I, we're not bearing that. We are sharing it. And the degree to which we become symptom sharers with the symptom bearers will be the degree to which we have some importance in terms in the kind of or degree of our attachment and empathy and sympathy with this person. That will determine how we treat them. For some people, some people will see, others who have mental health issues, or mental health difficulties, okay, as a bother. Why do I have to do this? They always do this. He grown and all this kind of stuff, No, mental health issues don't always have anything to do with being grown. It really doesn't. Some might not. And we need to understand that and show acceptance, of the person or persons, the bearers, okay? But sometimes we can't do that because we're locked into our own pain of seeing another part of us who is the other person in pain or in acting out in some degree of abnormality, and there's nothing we can do, and so we feel bad about that, and sometimes we don't know how to approach them or talk to them or whatever we do, so but what we really need to do is to accept me first. The sharer needs to accept me. Say, I accept the fact that this person who is living outside of me, who is a part of me, I'm talking about in the family now, okay? They are going through something, and as long as they're going through it, I'm going through it too. So I have my acceptance as a symptom sharer, and they have their acceptance of the self as a symptom bearer. Help them to accept and normify whatever they're going through, even though on the social scale, they are not normal. But if they can say, based on what I'm experiencing, that this is my norm. And we need to accept the fact that this is their norm, and don't expect them to do things that they can't do. We're talking about mental health in the Black community. When we ask them to do or expect greater things from them than they can do, we're banishing them because now they're not stupid. They may feel like so-and-so don't like me. They don't like me. And it's because I can't do this. And when siblings start to tease this person, that we gotta really deal with that. So because for them it could be a lonely life, a very lonely life. I'm talking about mental health in the Black community, not the Black person. It can be a lonely life. And we don't know what it is because their loneliness is not something we can touch. It is their experience of themselves. Okay. And so one of the things that we may not banish them, but they might feel rejected. Talking about some of the things that they can feel because of this. They may feel rejected depending on where they are in their with this mental health challenge that they're going through. They might feel rejected, like something is wrong with them, and they're saying to themselves, but I wish I was not going through this. I wish I did not have to deal with this, because I have high blood pressure. My wife, she tried to cook without salt, okay, and guess what? I like tasty food with some salt in it. So now I got to deal with the fact that I can't have some salt because it's going to push my blood pressure up. And, there's a contradiction right there, So what I like is not good for me. Neither is it good to me, So even that can create some kind of a mental health contradiction for me, because mental health, okay, is different from mental illness. You hear me? So even that, because if it's not tasting right, it could be a mental health issue. And if my wife is cooking all the time without salt, if I don't get to the place where my taste buds say, listen, I don't need salt anymore, I might stop eating her food, and and she don't feel great because I'm not eating her food. But then it seemed like after every time that we have dinner or lunch or whatever, I'm going to the store to do what? Buy something with salt in it. Now, the acting out of my mental health issue becomes something of a problem to her when she discovers what I'm doing. Right? So now she began to question her food, the taste of the cooking and everything. And she feels, she may even get to the point where she may think that I don't value her anymore. You see how this thing about mental health, it is so broad and it's so deep. It's not just, hey, listen, for one person. This is a familial and systemic thing that we're looking at here, okay? Mistrust of the values of self through the lens of through the lens of self, seen as a weakness, social pressure to be strong, social pressure to be strong, and we've heard this thing where people go, man up, man, you just need to man up. We don't know what people are going through because mental health episodes don't have to be enduring or over a long period of time or with great frequency. We may have episodes of mental health, issues. Yeah. We may not have a long history of mental sickness or illness, but the fact that we can go off track for a short time, that to me is a mental health episode. So it becomes episodic. That's what they say. It's episodic. So we go down through those things. And so we need to be able to understand. So when we say to somebody, yeah, man, you just need to man up. You just need to man up. Well, man up. Do you know what they're going through? As opposed to, hey, bro, I don't know how to say this, man, but, I've known you for a while, so I guess I can say this, man, is everything okay with you, man? Is everything okay with you? He may or may not say what's up with him because everybody else who's got something that's up with them, whenever they tell somebody, man, they get labeled. People tease them. So sometimes they're not up to manning up and telling you, they just suffer in silence. That is an extension now of mental health attack. When people, that's a suffer in silence in order to protect the self. Okay. All right. So if anybody want to come on and just talk with me for a while, that's fine. That's fine with me. Come on in. But when somebody don't understand me and treat me the way they understand themselves understanding me, as opposed to trying to figure out how I understand me, it is not going to work. All right. Okay. So that's what I'm talking. And then we have, some people who believe that they're alpha males and alpha females, so what do these things here mean? I'm not so sure that I know what it means. But again, we are saying when you go to the dictionary, alpha males will say this and alpha females will say this. And if females behave this way, then they are alpha females. And you can't have two alphas in a relationship because you're bumping heads together. Alpha male, alpha female, and male females ain't supposed to be alpha. So now, so we got to be very, very careful. And so as I'm going to start to wind this thing down now. We see a lot of times this is the normalcy of what people know. They see that they normally associate mental illness or mental health with the behavior of a person, whether they're drinking, smoking, doing dope, whatever it is, in the world of drug world. And sometimes what we need to do is not to be quick to label people because we don't know what's going on the inside. Listen, I'll tell you that if you strip the label off of a can and put them all out there, you won't know what's going on inside it. So we just don't know. All right. So we just need to, as I close it out, realize that this mental health issue is not something that is unique to a person. It is unique to the bearer, but it is community-wide for the sharers. Okay. And there's just so much more. And so what they do is if they have some pain, they're going through some stress, some people drink, smoke, or whatever it is, that's what I call social and emotional anesthesia, which they use to try to change the way their brain is functioning and processing things, and where their pain is going on, where other parts of their body, in order to stop them from feeling what they don't want to feel. Okay, so just as I close it out now, let's go right ahead and and be very careful and take ownership of this as a community. Whatever we see that's going on out there that may be a mental health issue, just know that you don't know, because you don't know what I'm feeling until I share with you what I'm feeling. Okay. So listen, I just want to thank you so much, and thank you all for those for your input. I hope what I shared this evening was beneficial for you, so that you can have a better understanding of it, not just at something about a unique person, but it is their unique experience, and that is all of ours. Everything. It's all of ours. Just the way we get happy. You invite people to, when somebody graduate, we're in graduation season now. We need to be able to say, listen, such and such is this is what's going on. And you do that with some good people, you get the kind of support you need, not just for that one time, but over the duration. Okay. So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. So listen, I'd like you to like, follow, share, and subscribe. This is Dr. Kit coming out of here. Like it, follow, share, and subscribe. And, please do that. And what I'd like for you to do, if you'd like to become a part of the show, just go to Dr. Kit Speaks at gmail.com. And I ran solo this evening, so I hope I didn't bore you. But next week we will be back with a duo. Okay, so everything working well, we'll have a duo next week, so we'll have somebody else for you to listen to instead of just listening to me all the time. All right, but I do thank you. So may God bless you, and see you on next week. Stay safe, and we'll see you then. Be good. Bye-bye.